Today I am going to present an analysis of a poem If by Rudyard Kipling. I am Dr. Shaikh Parvez Aslam, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of English, Lokseva Education Society's Arts and Science College, Garkheda Parisar, Aurangabad. About the poem If. The poem If by the Indian-born British Nobel laureate Rudyard Kipling is a poem of ultimate inspiration that tells us how to deal with different situations in life. The poet conveys his ideas about how to win this life and, after all, how to be a good human being. The poem, written in 1895 and first published in Rewards and Fairies 1910, is about 32 lines along with 4 stanzas of 8 lines each. It is a tribute to Leander Starr Jameson. The poem is written in the form of paternal advice to the poet's son, John. It is an inspirational poem that provides advice on how one should live one's life. The poem takes the reader through various ways in which the reader can rise above adversity that almost certainly be thrown one's way at some point in life. The poem is a masterpiece by Rudyard Kipling, the great British poet who was born in Bombay, then India. Is best known for his novels The Jungle Book, The Second Jungle Book, and Kim. If is the most famous poem and loved by people the world over. For the theme, as already told, the poem basically tells us the condition that we should meet to succeed in life and make this life happy and a beautiful one. The whole poem is about single complex sentence, so all the subordinate clause begin with if, and the main clause concluding the entire theme comes at the end, and the poem ends with a full stop. This structure of the poem was important to achieve the conditional goal. The poet speaks of the achievement at the end. This structure is actually symbolic in suggesting that you can get the rewards only after you have fulfilled the preconditions. Moreover, this makes the readers eager to know what would happen when we meet all these conditions, thus retaining curiosity and interest till the end. The inspirational part of this poem comes from the speaker's motivational message. For the young listeners, he helps this young man try to understand what it takes to be successful in life and how to handle defeat when it occurs, which the speaker says it certainly will. Throughout the poem, the speaker gives the reader multiple scenarios, both positive and negative, along with a glimpse into how one should conduct oneself. The poem has an almost mathematical proof about it with its if-then scenario. Kipling leaves the then until the final 2 lines, revealing to the reader that if he or she is able to do all that was just mentioned, he or she will not only have the world at his or her fingertips, but he or she will also be a man. In the first stanza, Kipling writes, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, Kipling reminds the reader of the importance of maintaining a level head, calm head, even when those around the reader do not have one and are blaming the situation on the reader. It should be noticed Here, that the reader soon realizes the poem is really one long sentence. The poem ends on a particularly high note, which Kipling emphasizes with his use of an exclamation point. The third and the fourth lines present the next if situation. Kipling writes, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. Here, the speaker emphasizes two traits that all people must possess: self trust and the ability to understand the thoughts and feelings of others. Even if that means understanding that people will not always like or agree with you. The final four lines of the first stanza flow together nicely, almost sounding as though they are one complete thought. Further, Kipling writes, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. In these lines, the speaker is telling the reader to have patience. In addition, he informs the reader that even if he or she is lied about, he or she should not stoop to the level of a liar. If he or she is hated, he or she must not become hateful. And finally, the reader should not appear to better than he or she actually is, nor should he or she talk in a manner that does not reflect who they are morally or spiritually. Second stanza, the if clause continues into the second stanza, but they are structured differently here. In the second stanza, the if clause were grouped in lines of two with the exception of the final four lines. In the second stanza, the form of the first two if clause is similar to the second half of the first stanza, where the lines build upon the previous lines. Kipling writes, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim. Yet Kipling urges his readers to dream and think, but to not get so caught up in dreams and thoughts that the reader loses his grasp on reality. Kipling uses personification in his next two lines. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat these two impostors just the same. Kipling's diction here is also worth mentioning. The word impostor suggests a pretense or disguise. Perhaps he uses this word to showcase the fleeting nature of both. Success never stays, nor does disaster. Additionally, he could possibly be suggesting that these two words often comes a disruption or change. In any case, the reader should not dwell too much on either triumph or disaster because they will soon disappear or get vanished. Kipling continues right on to his next if clause. If you can bear to hear the truth you have spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools. The speaker informs the reader that he or she must be able to endure hearing his or her words being twisted by dishonest and harmful people in order to serve their own agendas. He continues this thought in the last two lines of the stanza's writing. Or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. The speaker demonstrates in these lines the importance of being able to pick oneself up and start again if they fall. Even if the thing they failed at has taken all of their life at attempt, the reader must always be prepared to start again. Third stanza, Kipling writes, and I quote, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one ton of pitch and toes, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, unquote. The theme in these lines is very similar to the one in the last two lines of the previous stanzas. If you lose everything, you must be willing to begin again. Not only that, but you must also be willing to forget about the loss and dwell on it. The next four lines of the third stanza are also tied together. The speaker states, and I quote, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn along after they are gone, and so hold on where there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. Here in this line, will is used in cap lock. It suggests a kind of personification that definitely at the end of this analysis I'll explain here in when we will be coming to the part of understanding figures of speeches that has been used by the poet in this poem. These lines are particularly powerful. The speaker is imploring the reader to endure, even if that feels both physically and emotionally impossible. It is also worth noting the capitalization of will. Perhaps Kipling wanted to emphasize the resilience of the human spirit, here by making it a power that is a separate for the person who possesses it. The last stanza, that is the fourth stanza. In the fourth stanza, the consequences of doing all this ifs is finally revealed, but not before Kipling presents us with three more scenarios. The first one deals with how to treat others, regardless of their positions in life. He writes, if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, he says, and I explain this, it should not matter with whom the reader is walking, he or so she needs to treat the lowest of the low and the highest in a society exactly the same way, with the kindness. Kipling then dives right into the next if, and I quote, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, unquote. Kipling is reminding your reader that it is important to be able to bounce back for disappointment or pain. One must not dwell on his enemies or the hurt a loved one could potentially cause. Finally, the poet gives the reader his final piece of advice. I quote, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, unquote, he is telling his reader to never give up or waste even a single second of a time. If you are given a minute, make sure you use all 60 seconds of it. Finally, the last two lines, the outcome of abiding by all this is revealed. Yours is earth and everything that is in it, and which is more, you will be a man, my son. He says, if one is able to keep all these things, means whatever the scenarios or situation the poet has explained here in this poem, he At the end, at the concluding line, he is trying to explain, he's trying to mention here, he's trying to say that if one is able to keep all these things in check, one will have the world at one's fingertips. The figures of speeches used in this poem are personification and metaphor. Some examples I would like to share here. Dreams, master who can control our life. In this case, here Rudyard Kipling suggests or personifies dreams as assume a human role, quality that of being a master. Triumph and disaster are imposters. By mentioning triumph and disaster as imposters, Kipling is suggesting that success is personified here. Success is personified as triumph and can make us complacent. Failure is personified as disaster. In the line where will is capitalized is personified as a person who encourages us not to give up. The examples of metaphor: unforgiving minutes refer to time that waits for no man. It is like a race where every second is important. Worn out tools refer to the feeling of total exhaustion that can force someone to give up. Make one heap of all your winning is compared to a pile of money won at the gambling table. Walk with kings means to socialize with important people. Talk with crowds refers to mixing with all kinds of people. Thank you. Thank you so much.